Welcome to You Can Do It. So today we're working on a key fob for a VW T5 that is partly broken. I'm going to show you how to take it all apart and hopefully we can fix it. So today's problem is that the actual key there, look, has snapped out of the little holder, the thing that flips around. So what we're going to try and do is take all this apart, and I've got a spare one here which I had for another vehicle, and I'll try and take this apart and use the bits and put the new bit in there. So this key fob, there's various key fobs for VW, the newer ones and the older ones. This new one, I believe 2010 onwards or something, but look, if you notice, it's got a little pin there. These are a lot more difficult to take apart than the older ones. I have a here, this is an Audi one, which you just basically flip it there and the two parts come together, and it's relatively easy to change the battery and take it apart. But these newer ones are a little bit more difficult. You can change the battery by flipping this off, which I'll show you in a minute, but to take the actual thing completely apart takes a little bit more work. So the tools that I'm going to use today: pair of pliers, a long nose punch, which unfortunately I've broken it today because I was trying to do this on my own and it twisted slightly and broke it, but you get the idea. You need a long thin punch. This one actually I ground down on the grinder a little bit, and then a hammer, but I thought this is a bit big, far too big for the job, but that's just what I had handy. So they're all the tools that you need to do the job. Oh, actually, and a screwdriver. So if you just want to simply change the battery in these, you just need to take your key fob, and this sort of half here pops off. So you just need to put something under this edge here and lift it. So I'm just going to have to put this camera down to do that. So let me do that and I'll come back. Popped it off, and look, you just pop that off. There's a little seal there. If you want to change your battery, just change your battery. Job done. So this video is not really about that because that's just a very simple job to do. But if you need to change your battery, that's how you do it. And then you just put it back on, clip it on. Look, there, job done. Okay, but if you obviously want to take it apart, as we're going to have to do to change this, let's go into this in a bit more detail. Taking that cover off, as you've seen, and then if we turn this again, as you can see there, look, there's another pin down there. So you've actually got two pins, one pin here and one pin there. Now I'm going to actually sort of jump forward now. I've taken my other new key fob and I've actually taken that apart, and in doing so I can explain to you how we take this one apart, so you can see why we're doing what we're doing. So in actual fact, this pin you don't need to bother about. You can just leave that pin as it is, whereas other videos I've looked at on the internet have said, oh, you know, drive that pin out or whatever. You don't need to do anything with this pin, so just leave it where it is. This pin we have to drive out, and again, I didn't know whether we were supposed to just drive it out a little bit or all the way through or what, but it's I'll show you now the other key fob and you can understand what we have to do and why we have to push it all the way through. So this is the spare key one I've got. So I've put my punch here on that pin, and I've down there, and I've pushed the pin right the way through. And let me take it apart, and you can see. So to leave that off, I use my screwdriver, and I put my screwdriver just in there, and I leave that up, and basically that'll all come apart now. But be careful because there's a spring in here. But we can basically unclip all that, which I'll do now. So I've done that now. So look, they are, and you can see there's the spring and all that. So you don't actually need to take that pin out the back there, because all that pin actually does is allow. If you look, there's some little grooves there in the bottom. Sort of pin acts as a, so that when you put the thing in, it sort of clips in there, and you push it back on the front. So the one that we need to concentrate on is the pin here. So when you drive that pin out, you're basically driving it through here. The top bit is there. See, it goes through there. So it, in effect, locks between there and there. So that's why we have to drive that pin out. So it comes out the top of that board. Here's the pin there. Okay, so let's go to our good key. So here's the good key. I'm going to put the punch on that pin, and I'm going to punch that down. I can't do that and video with the other hand, so I'm going to stop the video and I'll do that and we'll come back. We have pushed that pin down in there. Now I hear you say, how deep do you have to go? And of course, if you haven't done this before, you don't know. But you do need to go deep. So let's go back to the old one and I'll show you how deep you need to go. The old one as an example. So this pin here needs to go all the way through down to there. So if you actually look at that as a measurement, it's about from there to there. There's about 15 millimeters. So you need to push this pin. Here's my good one. So there's the good one. So that pin needs to go down there about 15 millimeters before you're going to be able to get this apart. So just remember that. So you need something that's long enough that's going to be able to go down 15 millimeters. So now we've done that, we should be able to click this off. So let me get on and do that with both hands. So I'll put this in there and I just leave it a little bit, and then you suddenly get the click which tells you that it's broken. You can see that gap's bigger there. So that's that side done. And then you've got a couple of options. You can just put like a long knife down there and just crack, or a screwdriver and crack that side. Or you can try and just literally feed this up, push this side up. But I'm going to just put a kitchen knife and I'll just stick that in that slot and just crack that up. So let's use the screwdriver again and just crack that side up a bit more. So I'll just put it under there now and just try and split that side apart. I've obviously already taken those bits out. So there you can just see that pin all the way through. So if you don't push it all the way through, it won't come out so as hard as you try. So you need to make sure you push that minimum of 15 mil down. I've actually just found a slightly easier way of undoing it. So I will I'll just quickly clip it back together and then show you what you can do. Just a demonstration. I'm just going to clip it together even though it's not fixed yet, just to show you. But you see that pin there again, that location. The light can, there you are, you can see there's two little grooves there. So that this thing goes in there. So when you actually put it together, you have to actually put this bit in first, and it has to be tight on this back bit here first. It has to be right there, and then you can push it down in the front here and then like clip it together. So I'll just do that now and then I'll show you how another slightly improvised way of getting it apart. Clipped it together. So right now we're back to sort of, in a sense, square one. So imagine you've driven that pin out down 15 millimeters, and now we have to get it apart. So before, I mean, you can lever this bit up, which you have to do to start with, but bearing in mind, you remember that clips in the back as well. So we'll break it here, and I'll do that now. Front bit. That bit. Well, then what I'm going to try and do is put it in there and just crack that back bit up, and that's another way of getting it off. So you can either just do it all at the front and then lift it off like that, or once that's broken there a little bit, as in you've separated it a bit, you can also then just put a screwdriver in that gap at the back and lift it. So a screwdriver under there and lifted that, and now this side's cracked open, but that side's still connected, and then you can literally, so now it's separated. So now I can just put my new bits back in and reconnect it. What I'm actually going to do is get a pair of pliers and pull that. I've got some long nose pliers here, so I'll put that on there and pull that pin out. I've got the pin out, you can see the pin there. So now when I clip it all back together again, I can then push that pin back in. While we're here, these push buttons on here, look, they're a bit worn out and things like that. So I've actually got some new ones. So while we're here, I might as well we'll change that. So the first thing I need to do is just take out this whole electronics board. So what I'll do is I'll stick this little thing down here, and hopefully I can, there we are. So then that whole thing there, look, that comes out. That's the whole electronics for that board. So there was an option I could have put that new one in put that into the better quality key, but I don't know whether there's any coding actually stamped on the plastic, so I'll just try and reuse this original key. So there you can then see I think that's going to be the plastic button stuff underneath there. So I'll try and get that out now, and then okay, I've had a change of heart. I'm going to actually use the casings of the spare key I've got, because actually I was going to replace this on my original key, but I see that it's all like it's all waterproofed in there and sealed in there, so it's not quite such a simple job to change. So it's better just to use the whole casing. So what I'm actually doing now, I'm actually going to put the control thing from my original key into the donor key that I had. So that will fit in there like that. That should fit in fine. Obviously, make sure that you don't mix it up with the donor key one, otherwise you won't be able to get in your car. Anyway, so I'm going to clip all that in, and then get the key ready, and then we'll clip it all together again. That's in there nice and tight. So there's the cover. That's that done. Now, remember my old key. This one was all broken. So that's the old one. This is the new one. But I obviously need to put the key in. And when it broke, we lost the little pin that goes in it. So what I'll show you now is how to simply change the keys. This is an Audi key that I've actually got, which you can see I can just nick. There's the pin there. You see the little tiny hole. You just drive that pin out, and then you can take the key, this blade out. So I'll do that now and put it into there, and you can see how it goes. My punch here to punch down through into that little hole. I've left it in the key fob as something to support it. So if you turn it over, you can see, look, there's that pin starting to come out. So now you just take your long nose pliers and put it on there and pull it out. So pin's out, which should then mean that this key, look, the key just comes out. So you can see there's a little ridge there where that pin goes down and it stops the key coming out. But now that pin's out, so the key comes out. So I'm actually I'm looking after that for that pin, so that can go away. So now I have to find the original blade, and we'll put that back in there. Yep. So I've put the new key into the housing, and I've just started to push that pin down. So then I'll just tap that down so it's all flush, and then it's all ready to go back together. Yeah. So I do that. I put that in there, obviously, and you can't. So remember, you have to put this bit here in the base bit here, and then lever that down. Now you can't clip it like that. Just simply, well, you can. But if you do that, then this spring is not tight, so your key fob won't flip up. So this is the little bit of fiddly bits. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to show you how to pretension this key so that it flips around. So make sure your spring is in there. There's a little tab, little bit sticking out there. Make sure that's sticking out towards this side, towards you. Take your casing here. And there's a tiny little slot there, which you need to make sure that the key, that little bit of the spring fits in. So you basically put it together like that, right? So then you turn it anti-clockwise, one full turn, like that. Yeah, so now that's pretty low. So if you look, it's going to try and come out, it tries to come out by itself. So now that's under tension and under pressure. So now we need to try and put this back together. So it's a fiddly job. So remember that this back bit here has to go in there, like that. And then you hold that together, put it together, there we are. It's all clipped in. Now just check that your key works. If you push your key, there we are. Right, so what I'm going to do, now I need to draw, I've got my the little pin, which you could then put back in there and drive it back in. But before I do that, I'm actually just going to put the battery in here, which we can do now. So I'll put the battery in. There's a battery, and then I'll put clip that on. Okay, I'm going to take that little sticker off. So now I've got that like that. I'm not going to put this pin in because I want to go and check it in the car and make sure everything's right and I haven't mistakenly put the wrong board in and everything. So so that's it at the moment. So in this film we have changed I've shown you, excuse the crying child, we've changed the key fob, we've changed the actual outer casing and taken this apart. So I'm going to go and try this in the car now, check it works, and then after that we'll drive that pin back in. Okay, so we tested that out, it all worked fine. So now we're just going to take that pin, pop it in there, and I might be able to push it in with, yeah. So if I push that pin in, there we are. So I now know that that case is locked, and the reason you obviously have to have that pin in there is because there's a lot of force on this key when you put it in and you twist it. If not, you could break open your case. So that's all locked in and replaced. So we've fixed it there. And again, as I said at the beginning, this is for the keys that have got that pin there. Hope that helps.